The massive crystal chamber on Zentari Prime shook with fear. Ambassador Cathara stood at the center of the room, her forearms trembling as she held the translation device. Her body was made of living crystal that normally glowed bright blue, but today it flickered weakly like a dying star. Around her, representatives from 47 different alien species sat in their floating chairs, all of them scared. "My friends," Cathara said, her voice echoing through the chamber, "we are going to die." The room fell silent. Even the mind-weavers, who never stopped their mental chatter, went quiet. Everyone knew why they were here, but hearing it said out loud made it real. "The Void Swarm has returned," she continued. "For 10,000 years they slept in the dark spaces between galaxies. Now they are awake and they are hungry." On the walls around them, holographic images appeared. They showed the horror that was coming. Massive black shapes moved through space like living shadows. Where they passed, entire star systems vanished. Planets, moons, space stations, everything was consumed, turned into energy to feed the swarm. "The Hegemon Empire's greatest battle fortress lasted only 3 hours, Cathara said. "The Quantum Confederation tried to use their reality-bending weapons. The swarm ate those too." Small furry creature named Elder Thix raised his paw. "How many ships have we lost?" 12 fleets, Cathara answered. "Over 3 million vessels. The swarm doesn't just destroy them, it learns from them. Every weapon we use, every strategy we try, it adapts and grows stronger." The chamber erupted. In panicked voices, some aliens clicked their mandibles in distress. Others changed colors to show their fear. Few simply curled up into balls and started rocking back and forth. "Silence," boomed Elder Vorthok, the ancient leader of the Mindweavers. His voice echoed directly in everyone's thoughts. "There must be a solution. We are the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Surely we can find a way." Cathara's crystal body dimmed even more. "We have tried everything. Our best scientists, our greatest warriors, our most powerful weapons. Nothing works. The swarm is too strong, too adaptable. It has been doing this for millions of years, consuming entire galaxies. Then what do you suggest?" asked Captain Zelen of the Trading Federation. "Ali, should we just give up and wait to die?" "No," Cathara said slowly. "There is one option we have never considered. One type of world we have always avoided." She pressed a button on her device, and a new image appeared. It showed a small blue and green planet orbiting a yellow star. It looked peaceful, almost pretty, but there was something about it that made several aliens recoil in their seats. "Sol 3 Cathara announced. It's also known as Terra, or Earth. Classification: Extreme Death World." Horrified gasps filled the chamber. Awes were the stuff of nightmares in galactic society. Planets so dangerous that just living on them turned their inhabitants into living weapons. "You cannot be serious," whispered Elder Thix, his fur standing on end. "Deathworlders are monsters. They're violent, unpredictable, dangerous to everyone around them." "Precisely," Cathara said. "We have always avoided them because they are too violent for civilized contact. But perhaps that violence is exactly what we need now." She changed the image to show data about Earth's inhabitants. The numbers were terrifying. These creatures, humans they called themselves, had somehow survived on a planet that tried to kill them every single day. They faced deadly weather, poisonous plants, massive predators, diseases, earthquakes, floods, and fires. And not only did they survive, they thrived. "Look at their history," Cathara said. "They have been fighting wars for their entire existence, not just against other species, but against their own kind. They have weapons that can destroy their entire planet, yet they keep making more powerful ones." "This is madness," Elder Vorthok projected. "Even if these Deathworlders could fight the swarm, how do we know they won't turn on us next? How do we know they won't become an even greater threat?" Shtera looked around the chamber at all the scared faces staring back at her. Some had tentacles, some had scales, some were made of energy or crystal or metal, but they all had one thing in common. They were all prey animals compared to the creatures on that blue world. "Because," she said quietly, "we have studied them from afar for centuries. Yes, they are violent. Yes, they are dangerous. But there is something else about them, something that makes them different from any other species we have encountered. She paused, letting the tension build. They protect things. When something threatens what they care about, they don't just fight, they become unstoppable. Their entire history is filled with stories of them sacrificing themselves to save others, even strangers. "So what are you proposing?" asked Captain Zelen. Cathra straightened up, her crystal body flickering with new determination. "We send them a message. We tell them about the swarm. We ask for their help. And we pray to whatever gods they worship that these Deathworlders are as protective as our studies suggest." The chamber fell silent again. Everyone knew it was their only hope, but the idea of contacting Deathworlders terrified them almost. As much as the approaching swarm, finally, Elder Vorthok spoke for them all. "May the cosmos have mercy on us all." Captain Park Min-ho was having a normal Tuesday when everything changed. He sat in his command chair aboard the mining ship Defiance, watching his crew collect rocks from an asteroid belt near Jupiter. It was boring work, but it paid well. The ship's engines hummed quietly as they moved from one floating rock to another. Captain called out his communications officer, Lee Sora. Her face had gone completely white. "You need to see this." Min-ho walked over to her station. Sora was staring at her screens like she had seen a ghost. Numbers and symbols flashed across multiple displays, all showing the same impossible thing. "What am I looking at?" Min-ho asked. "Every frequency, sir," Sora whispered. "Every single radio frequency we monitor is receiving the same signal. All at once. That should be impossible." Min-ho frowned. In 20 years of space work, he had never seen anything like this. "Is it from Earth?" "No, sir. It's coming from ... everywhere. And sir," Sora looked up at him with wide eyes, "it's not human." The bridge fell silent except for the soft beeping of computers. Min-ho's crew 5 experienced miners, who had seen everything space could throw at them, all stopped what they were doing and stared. "Put it on speakers," Min-ho ordered. What came out was not words, but something that made their minds hurt. Strange sounds that seemed to bypass their ears and speak directly to their brains. Then, slowly, the sounds began to change. They became clearer, more familiar, until finally they heard perfect Korean. "People of the Sol System," the voice said, "we are the Galactic Council." Min-ho grabbed his chair to keep from falling over. His engineer, Kim Taejin, dropped his coffee mug. The liquid floated in small spheres in the low gravity. "We represent 47 different species from across the galaxy," the voice continued. "We have been watching your world for many years, but have never made contact because ... because your species is too violent for civilized interaction." "Did they just call us violent?" whispered Park Ji-woo, the ship's mechanic. "Your planet Earth has been classified as an extreme death world," the alien voice went on. "The creatures that live there, you humans, have been shaped by constant danger into something we feared to approach. But now we need that violence. We need your help." The message that followed changed everything Min-ho thought he knew about the universe. Holographic images suddenly filled his bridge, showing things that made no sense. Vast cities floating in. Space, ships bigger than mountains. Creatures made of crystal and light and pure energy. But then the images changed, and Min-ho saw horror beyond imagination. Black shadows moved through space like living nightmares. Wherever they went, everything died. Planets cracked and crumbled. Entire star systems went dark. "This is the Void Swarm," the alien explained. "They are older than our civilizations. They consume everything: matter, energy, life itself. They've destroyed countless galaxies. And now they have come for ours." Min-ho watched whole worlds disappear into the hungry darkness. He saw fleets of alien ships trying to fight, only to be swallowed without trace. The images showed billions of creatures dying, their last moments. Filled with terror, "Our most advanced weapons are useless," the voice said, now sounding desperate. "Our greatest warriors have fallen. Our smartest scientists cannot find a solution. The swarm learns from everything we try. It grows stronger with each victory." So, what do you want from us? Minho found himself saying out loud, even though he knew the aliens couldn't hear him, as if answering his question. The voice said, "We know humans fight differently than civilized species. You do not retreat when outnumbered. You do not surrender when facing certain death. You protect what you care about with a ferocity that terrifies us." The images changed again, showing what Minho realized were surveillance recordings of Earth. Humans fighting in wars, rescuing people from disasters, sacrificing themselves for strangers. The aliens had been watching humanity for a very long time. "We offer you technology beyond your dreams," the alien said. "Faster than light travel. Energy weapons. Medical advances that could eliminate disease and aging. We offer you a place among the stars, membership in our galactic community." Minho felt his heart racing. Everything humanity had ever dreamed of was being offered freely. "In return, we ask only that you help us survive. We know you are dangerous. We know you are violent, but we also know you are protective. We are asking you to protect us, as you would protect your own families." The message began to repeat, but Minho had heard enough. He grabbed his communications panel and opened a channel to Earth. "This is Captain Park Minho of the Defiance to all Earth stations. Emergency priority. We just received first contact. From aliens, and they need our help. Someone is trying to eat them, and they want us to stop it." He paused, thinking about what he had just seen. Then he smiled. But it wasn't a happy smile. It was the kind of smile a person gets when someone threatens their friends. "Looks like humanity is going to war," he said into the radio. "And this time, we're the good guys." Within hours, every government on Earth was in emergency session. The aliens had made one critical mistake in their message. They'd assumed that offering humanity advanced technology would be necessary to get their help. They didn't understand that humans would fight monsters for free, especially when those monsters were hurting people who asked nicely for help. Ambassador Cathara had never been so scared in her 300-year life. She stood in the meeting room on her home world, waiting for the humans to arrive. Her crystal body was flickering between blue and gray, which meant she was terrified. Around her, other alien ambassadors shifted nervously in their seats. "Are you sure this is wise?" asked Elder Thix, his small furry body trembling. "What if they attack us? What if they eat us?" added Captain Zelen, his tentacles writhing with worry. Cathara was about to answer when the door opened. "What?" Human walked in, and every alien in the room went silent. The creature was huge, nearly 2 meters tall and covered in muscles. Its eyes faced forward like a predator, and when it smiled, they could see teeth designed for tearing meat. "Lo," the human said in a voice that sounded like controlled thunder. "I am General Lee Hana of the Earth Defense Force." Behind her came more humans. Each one looked like it could break Cathara in half without trying. They wore strange clothing covered in pockets and moved with the smooth confidence of apex predators. One of them, a male called Commander Choi Dae-yoon, had scars across his face that suggested he had survived fights that would kill most civilized beings. "Please sit," Cathara managed to say, her voice shaking. The humans sat down, and even that simple action was intimidating. They didn't fidget or look around nervously like other species. They just sat perfectly still and stared at the aliens. With those forward-facing eyes, "Show us everything," General Lee said. It wasn't a request. Cathara activated the holographic displays. Images of the void swarm filled the room. The massive black creatures that devoured worlds, the destroyed. Fleets, the billions of dead. She expected the humans to show fear or horror, like every other species did. Instead, they leaned forward with interest.
"How fast do they move?"
asked Major Yoon Tae-ho. "Do they have a central command structure?" added Commander Choi. "What's there?" "Reproduction rate?" asked another human. Cathara was confused. These weren't the questions other species asked. Other species wanted to know about escape routes or hiding places. The humans were asking about the swarm like they were planning to hunt it. You're not afraid," she said. General Lee tilted her head. "Of course we're afraid. Fear keeps you alive. But fear doesn't stop you from doing what needs to be done. We've studied your military records," Elder Vorthok projected into their minds. You wage war against your own species, create weapons that could destroy your entire planet. You think like the swarm, total destruction, no mercy? The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Every human's expression changed, becoming colder and more dangerous. General Lee stood up slowly, and Cathara instinctively backed away. No, the general said quietly. We don't think like the swarm. The swarm destroys because it's hungry. We destroy because someone hurt people we care about. There's a very big difference. She gestured to the images of destroyed worlds. These people asked us for help. That makes them our friends, and humans protect their friends. Commander Choi pulled out a small device and started taking notes. How many worlds has the swarm attacked in the last year? 17, Cathara answered automatically. Casualties. 4 billion beings. The humans exchanged glances. Major Yoon spoke next. What kind of industrial capacity do your surviving worlds have? What do you mean? Factories, shipyards, places that build things, generally explained. We're going to need a lot of equipment very quickly. But first, said Commander Choi, we need to go home and wake up Earth. 3 weeks later, Cathara received reports that made her crystal body glow with amazement and terror. Earth had transformed itself into something she had never seen before. Every factory on the planet had stopped making normal things and started making weapons. Car factories were building tanks. Electronics companies were making targeting systems. Even toy companies were producing communication equipment for the military. But the most frightening part was the humans themselves. When their government asked for volunteers to fight an alien enemy, over 200 million people signed up in the first day. Not soldiers, regular people. Teachers, farmers, shopkeepers, students, all of them wanted to fight monsters. They had never seen to protect aliens they had never met.
Oh.
This makes no logical sense, Elder Vorthok said when he saw the reports. Why would they volunteer to die for strangers? General Lee was visiting their command ship when he asked this question. She looked at him with those predator eyes and smiled. Because that's what humans do, she said simply. When someone asks for help, we help. When someone threatens our friends, we fight. When monsters try to eat innocent people, we kill the monsters. She pointed to the tactical displays showing Earth's preparations. You asked us for help because we're violent. But you don't understand what kind of violent we are. We're not violent for fun, or because we're cruel. We're violent because we love something more than we fear death. What do you love more than death? Cathara asked. General Lee's smile became warmer, more human. Each other. And now you. That night, as Cathara watched human ships launch from Earth like angry metal hornets, she realized they had done more than call for help. They had awakened. Something that would change the galaxy forever. The humans weren't just coming to fight the Void Swarm. They were coming to adopt an entire galaxy full of species. They had never met and declare war on anything that threatened their new family. The first battle between humans and the Void Swarm happened at Kethmaron Mining Station, a small outpost that processed metal from asteroids. Captain Zethlock of the Hegemony 4th Fleet watched from his command ship as the human vessels approached the station. The swarm had already begun consuming the facility. Its black tentacles wrapped around the metal structures like hungry snakes. Those human ships are too small, Zethlock said to his crew. They only have 12 vessels against a swarm mass the size of a mountain. His tactical officer, a creature with 6 eyes, studied the displays. The humans are not retreating, Captain. They're accelerating toward the enemy. Zethlock couldn't believe what he was seeing. Every civilized species in the galaxy knew the proper response to encountering the Void Swarm: run away as fast as possible and call for backup. The humans were doing the opposite. They were charging straight at the monster. This is Captain Song. Ginwoo of the human fleet came a voice over the communications channel. All allied ships, pull back to safe distance. We're going to try something new. The human ships moved in a formation that made no sense to Zethlock. Instead of spreading out to make themselves harder to hit, they clustered together. Instead of using long-range weapons from a safe distance, they flew directly into the swarm's tentacles. They're going to be destroyed, whispered his communications officer. But they weren't. The first human ship to make contact with the swarm didn't explode or get consumed. Instead, it opened fire with weapons that tore through the black flesh like burning knives. The ship spun and twisted through the tentacles, too small and fast for the massive creature to catch. Then something happened that had never been recorded in galactic history. When the swarm's tentacles wrapped around the second human ship and began crushing it, the ship exploded. But it wasn't an accident. The humans had detonated their own vessel on purpose, taking a huge chunk of the swarm with them. Did they just kill themselves to hurt the enemy? Zethlock asked in shock. Confirmed, Captain, his tactical officer replied. The explosion was controlled. They sacrificed themselves deliberately. More human ships followed the same pattern. When they couldn't win, they made sure their deaths cost the swarm as much as possible. The creatures from Earth fought with a fury that defied all logic. Continuing to battle even when their ships were severely damaged, Lieutenant Kong Sujin's vessel had lost half its hull and was leaking atmosphere. But she kept fighting. Her ship limped through space, trailing debris and fire, yet her weapons never stopped firing. When a swarm tentacle punched through her bridge, she grabbed a portable weapon and continued shooting through the hole. She's lost primary life support, reported Zethlock's medical officer. No being can survive in those conditions. But Kong Sujin did survive for another 20 minutes of combat. Even when her ship finally died, she used the last of its power to ram it into the swarm's feeding mouth. The aliens watching the battle were horrified and amazed. These humans didn't fight like any species they had ever encountered. They fought like the swarm itself, with total commitment and no regard for their own survival. But then the humans did something that showed they were far more dangerous than the swarm. Captain, called Lieutenant Park Dong-min from the human command ship, Phase 2 is ready. Suddenly, every asteroid in the belt began exploding. Not from weapon fire, but from bombs that had been planted inside them. The humans had somehow rigged the entire mining field with explosives before the battle even started. When did they do this? Zethlock demanded. His intelligence officer checked the records. The human ships arrived here 3 days ago, Captain. They spent that time mining. But they hadn't been mining for metal. They had been filling every rock in the asteroid belt with nuclear bombs. When the swarm tried to consume the asteroids to regain energy after the fight, it instead got massive. Explosions that tore through its body. The swarm writhed in pain and confusion. This had never happened before. Prey didn't poison their own environment. Prey didn't make their homes into weapons. Captain Song Jin-woo's voice came over the communications again, but now he was speaking to the swarm itself. You made a mistake. Monster, you decided to eat our friends. Now you get to learn why everything on our planet is afraid of us. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the swarm mass was dead, floating in pieces among the exploding asteroids. But the cost was terrible. Only 3 human ships survived, and they were barely holding together. Zethlock opened a channel to the human fleet. Captain! Song, your casualties are severe. Do you need medical assistance? Song's reply chilled Zethlock to his core. Negative. We're already planning the next attack. The swarm has 17 other feeding sites in this sector. We'll hit them all before they know what's happening. Lelder Vorthok's voice suddenly projected into every ship in the area. The humans are not trying to defeat the swarm in traditional combat. They're hunting it. They're making themselves too expensive to eat while slowly starving it to death. That night, as Zethlock filed his report, he realized the galaxy had changed forever. The humans weren't just allies in this war. They had become something new, a species that could out-monster the monsters. The Void Swarm had spent millions of years being the most terrifying thing in the universe. Now it was about to discover what it felt like to be prey. The final battle took place in the cold darkness between galaxies, where space was so empty that stars looked like tiny distant candles. The Void Swarm's main body had retreated here to heal and grow stronger. It was massive, bigger than Earth's moon, and it pulsed with dark energy as it fed on the matter it had stolen from 1,000 worlds. Captain. Park Minho stood on the bridge of his ship, the Soul's Pride, and looked at the monster through his view screen. Around him, the combined fleet of humanity and 47 alien species prepared for what everyone knew would be the last battle. If they failed here, the swarm would recover and eventually consume the entire galaxy. This is Admiral Kim Ji-ho, came the voice over the communications. Remember what we're fighting for. Every person, every alien, every child who wants to see tomorrow, make your shots count. Minho had been fighting the swarm for 8 months now. He had seen entire worlds die. He had watched good people sacrifice themselves to save strangers. His own ship had been rebuilt 3 times after being nearly destroyed. In previous battles, Captain said his weapons officer, Lieutenant Choi Haijin, were detecting movement from the swarm. It's waking up. The massive creature began to unfold itself like a nightmare flower. Tentacles the size of skyscrapers emerged from its central mass. Smaller feeding pods separated from the main body and moved toward the approaching fleet. Each pod was big enough to swallow a human battleship whole. "Here they come," whispered engineer Kim So-young from her station. "May our ancestors watch over us?" The battle began with the alien ships firing their most powerful weapons. Beams of pure energy and reality-warping missiles struck the swarm, but they barely left marks on its surface. The creature had grown too large and too strong. It absorbed the attacks and used the energy to make itself even bigger. "Conventional weapons are useless," reported Captain Song from the alien command ship. "The swarm has adapted to everything we've tried." But the humans had not come here to fight conventionally. As the swarm's feeding pods reached the outer edge of the fleet, human ships began doing what they did best, the impossible. Commander Lee. Do-yoon's ship was caught by a feeding tentacle that wrapped around it like a giant fist. Instead of trying to escape, she activated her ship's self-destruct sequence and rammed it directly into the tentacle's base. The explosion severed the appendage and sent shockwaves through the swarm's nervous system. "That's how we do it," shouted Major Yoon Tae-joon over the radio as he followed Lee's example. Ship was already badly damaged, leaking air and losing power. He aimed it at another feeding pod and detonated every weapon on board at once. But the swarm was learning. It began targeting the human ships specifically, recognizing them as the greatest threat. Massive tentacles swept through space, trying to crush the small human vessels before they could get close enough to cause damage. That's when Minho realized what they had to do. "All human ships, this is Captain Park," he broadcast. "Form up. On me, we're going straight for the core." "Captain, that's suicide," protested his tactical officer. "Maybe," Minho said, watching as human ships from across the fleet began moving toward him. "But if we don't do this, everyone dies anyway." 50 human ships formed a spearhead formation with Minho's vessel at the front. They accelerated directly toward the swarm's central mass, dodging tentacles and feeding pods. Enemy fire tore through their ranks, but they kept flying forward. Ambassador Cathera watched from the alien command ship as the humans threw themselves at the monster. "They're all going to die," she whispered. "Yes," said General Lihana, who was coordinating the attack from the flagship. "But they're going to take that thing with them." One by one, the human ships were destroyed or badly damaged, but each loss brought them closer to their target. When Lieutenant Park Subin's engines failed, she used her ship's emergency thrusters to keep flying. When Commander Jung Min-seo's weapons were destroyed, he turned his entire ship into a missile. Finally, only Minho's ship remained, flying alone toward the swarm's core. His vessel was falling apart around him. Half his crew was dead or wounded. The ship's hull was cracked and burning. Captain called out his communications officer. "Admiral Kim wants to know if we can complete the mission." Minho looked around his ruined bridge at the faces of his surviving crew. They were scared, but none of them suggested retreating. Engineer Kim So-young gave him a small nod. Weapons Officer Choi Haijin managed a weak smile. "Tell the Admiral," Minho said, "that Earth keeps its promises." He aimed his ship at the exact center of the swarm's core and activated every explosive device on board. The soul's pride struck the monster's heart like a burning spear and detonated with the force of a small star. The explosion tore through the swarm's central nervous system and sent waves of destruction throughout its massive body. For the first Time and millions of years, the cosmic horror felt something it had never experienced before. Fear of death, the remaining pieces of the swarm fled into deep space, broken and defeated. The victory came at a terrible cost. 60% of the human fleet was gone, including some of the bravest people who had ever lived. As the survivors counted their dead, General Lihana received a message from the Galactic Council. He wanted to offer Earth a place of honor among the civilized species and help them rebuild their losses. Her reply was simple: "Thank you. But we're not done yet. There are still pieces of that thing out there, and we're going to hunt down every last one." The galaxy had learned something important that day. Humans didn't just fight to survive. They fought to protect others, and they would never stop fighting as long as there were monsters threatening their friends.